Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Katie Watucky, our editor. Welcome, Katie. And Paul Mirsky, Group Vice President of the Independent Community Bankers of America Association. Paul, I always enjoy you coming on and giving us your insights. You subbed for me when I was down the rabbit hole last month, so thank you very much for that.
Yeah, always glad to be on your program.
Well, first of all, I love logistics. Where are you? Are you back in your office or an undisclosed location? Where are you working out of these days?
No, we've been successfully working out of our homes for several months now, and our offices are just a block from the White House, so a lot of activity down there.
Defying activity. Let's just call it interesting times. How's that? Very good. Let's Paul, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to find out what ICBA is doing and Paul's take on that. There's a certificate. You can download that and keep track of that for your training. And we have two poll questions, and we just want to know overall what's going on. Paul, what are your members telling you?
You know, it's very challenging still. They're in, phase 2 of this PPP program. Community banks have done about 65% program. So for an industry, community banks that represent 20% of the entire banking industry, they've done the lion's share of these PPP loans. And we're keeping a lot of pressure on Treasury and the SBA to continue to simplify this process. In the initial application was 3 pages, and then they came out with an 11-page application with more pages of instructions. We thought that was way too onerous for both the borrower and the lender. So we just got today some EZ forms. We're looking through those. That was one of our requests. But really what we think they should do is have some kind of de minimis cutoff. If Treasury would say any loan under $1 million or $300,000, you certify that you use the money appropriately and, subject to audit and call it a day. But now we still have, borrowers that have to send in electric bills and things like that, and the banks have to keep those files. And it seems way too onerous for Congress really intending this to be a grant program.
Well, good. I'm glad you were working on that. Let's go ahead and go into it, Paul. The SBA came out with some guidance today, but I understand we're going to have more guidance to be issued, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. There's over 15 interim final rules now, and they keep changing rules that aren't even final yet. So this is an ongoing process, and it's been very challenging, but I think, the bankers have a good handle now on process. They're starting to process their origination fees. I don't know of any bank who's actually received those payments yet. Maybe they're going out, but
yeah, we did a poll yesterday. Katie, what the number is eluding me, but well over 50% have received some funds, and there's one bank they've got 90% of their fees. What were the numbers, Katie?
I don't remember the number exactly, but I think you were right. It was quite a few that were starting to get those.
Yeah,
they're not getting all good. That's relieving some of the anxiety, because if you think about it, the government really didn't put out anything until they started paying origination fees. So banks put out over $500 billion of their own liquidity, their own funds, and are waiting to get some fees on that, and waiting to have the forgiveness process kick in where they could replenish those funds at their bank for additional lending. So there's a hearing today in the House Small Business Committee focused on loan forgiveness. So a few small business owner witnesses there. Hopefully that'll be helpful to keep the pressure on Treasury and SBA to simplify this process for small business owners.
Paul, if you had to guess, what would that dollar amount be? Do you have any sense?
You know,
closer?
it's been a whole range. The ICBA asked for any loans of $1 million and under to be kind of self-certification. And that was based off of Secretary Mnuchin on the application side, said that they weren't going to audit anything under 2 million. So you kind of self-certified that you applied for this money and needed the money, and they weren't going to audit any loan applications under 2 million. So we said, well, if it works on the application side, it should work on the forgiveness side as well. So any loan of $1 million and under, the borrower does all the certifications. I used it for payroll. I used it for the proper expenses, and, you know, subject to criminal prosecution, I certify I used this money correctly and call it a day. Not affecting your you know, electric bill, your cable bill, your, you know, payroll. I mean, you know, but as you know, some small businesses have, you know, sophisticated accounting firms doing their paperwork, and some small businesses, after they're done closing the business, they're, you know, working in the back room on an adding machine doing the paperwork. So, you know,
the old 9 key, if you're old enough to remember that.
Exactly.
I love it. Paul, we track the numbers as you do. The average loan size, I believe, Katie, 119,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, something about that.
So, so I think that would be very, you start collecting all this paperwork. Obviously, things are going to fall through the cracks. You're telling your business owner, hey, I need your April electric bill. That's just going to bog everyone down at paperwork.
Right. So
go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. So a lot of our trade association's focus is keeping pressure on Treasury and SBA to simplify this forgiveness process. And that's going to help both the borrower and the lender.
Paul, what percentage of the community banks have done the PPP loans?
Yeah, I would say about 80%. I mean, if you look at the number of participants in this lending program, it's phenomenal. I mean, you know, not everyone participated in 7A, the traditional, you know, SBA programs, but virtually all the banks jumped on this PPP program.
Nice. Well, I mean, that's good for Main Street. It's good for the program. It's hopefully that'll allow some more banks to dip their toe in the water with SBA lending and come back with a good experience. Hey, we want to know what your travel policy is. That's higher than I thought. 60% say they can travel. 16% prohibited till the end of the year, and 25% for 3 months. We're going to have Jennifer Blooming on next week. She's the coordinator of these conferences, and she's going to tell us what they're going to do on a virtual basis. Let's see. Paul, we get a lot of questions, and I know that we are don't have the final ruling, but we get this question over and over. How do I handle a sole proprietorship? I have a Schedule C, and how do I calculate their payroll? Do you have an opinion about that?
I don't really get in the weeds on that, so I'm going to try to give advice and screw something up.
Fair enough. Let's go through some of your policy. This came out this morning, and these are everything ICBA is working on. Paul, go ahead. Tell us what you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, over the years, we've really tried to keep a robust SBA loan program going, and as many of us know, you know, sometimes it runs into trouble on Capitol Hill. It doesn't get the right appropriation. It doesn't get the right funding. I mean, years ago, I used to fight for the appropriation every year where we keep the a lot lower. But then we transferred to a kind of a fee-based system, and that's worked reasonably well. So, but even now, the SBA program's tripped up on the 7A program linked to the PPP program, and we've got to get that fixed. So the traditional 7A 504 programs are going to remain robust going forward.
Very good. Paul, we get this question from time to time. Any chance 7A can run out of money this fiscal year?
So far, it looks like it's on track to be okay, but that's a perfect example. If it should run out of money, we would, ask for an emergency appropriation. And in the past, we've been successful. In this environment, the last thing we want to be doing is shortchanging small business and not providing the credit liquidity out there to keep small businesses afloat.
I agree with you, and I've said I think if we, first of all, the numbers are on track that we're fully funded this year, but if we have a shortfall, I mean, this is truly a bipartisan effort. Hey, does ICBA have an opinion on the Express on whether that should be raised to $1 million or stay at the 350 level?
No, we've been advocating for years to increase those levels to make it more accessible to more small businesses. So absolutely increase that dollar amount.
What do you see happening with that?
Yeah, it's not clear yet. Nothing has really gelled around a number there or activity to get that done. So it's something that I think is going to require some more grassroots pressure.
Very good. Let's see. Let's go to the next slide, Joseph. Oh, by the way, the forgiveness forms that came out this morning, they are in the GoToWebinar dashboard. We'll also have those up on our website. So feel free to, you can click on that and download the PDF. Joseph, is there a way people can download it after the webinar, or once we close it, it's done? How's that work?
It's linked in the email that went out this morning.
Okay, it's linked in the email. Very good. So take a look at those. And as Paul and Katie have indicated, we're waiting for more. I have to be honest. I've read the first paragraph and my eyes glazed over. They said, these are the changes to interim rule number 3 and 6. And I don't know what interim rule 3 and 6 are. So I know it's 11 pages. I know. Go ahead, Paul.
So we're hoping when this is all pulled together, they have one final rule that pulls it all together, because now it's kind of a scavenger hunt through Q&As and 15 plus interim final rules. It's a scavenger hunt to get answers to very basic questions in many cases.
Does ICBA have an opinion about the Main Street lending program, or is that larger than your members will participate with?
Yeah, we work very closely with the Federal Reserve on that program to try to get it, in a different form where it would be more useful. The amount of the minimum loan size of $250,000 is still pretty high. If you remember, they started out at $1 million, and we kept pressure on them, and then they went to $500,000, and now they went to $250,000. So it's a very, very complex program, but I think it can be useful. I mean, we have some of our community banks interested in participating in the Main Street lending program, but it's really for much larger businesses.
Paul, I read about PPP4. What's in that for community bankers?
Right. So there's multiple bills in Congress now, either introduced or being drafted to what I label as build a better mousetrap. So everyone's trying to build a better PPP type program. The trouble there is that there's very limited time to debate this in the House and Senate and get another bill passed. If you recall, a lot of these programs were launched very quickly because most of the votes were done by unanimous consent or strong bipartisan vote. You don't have that environment right now, so it's going to be very challenging to introduce a standalone new PPP bill. And yeah, we get a lot of questions from Capitol Hill on, there's going to be residual funds. It looks like the PPP program for new loans is going to shut down in 13 days, and there could be a lot of money left over. So that was never used. So they're trying to introduce a new program, but I think what will happen there is it's all going to be wrapped up in kind of a phase 4 stimulus package, any type of changes, and that will include all kinds of things from unemployment insurance to maybe liability protection for businesses that are reopening, infrastructure spending. So there could be another package the size of CARES that could be $1 trillion, $2 trillion.
Well, my personal feeling on this is I'm glad in terms of compare where we are today versus the Great Recession. Great Recession, we bailed out Wall Street, we bailed out AIG, and this time the go around is we're going to bail out Main Street directly. I'm all for that. They got it out fast. I understand that it's not perfect, as you said, the perfect mousetrap, but I'd much rather them get something out there. Can you imagine if PPP was ready to roll out this week? I mean, 3 months later, that would have been ridiculous.
Right. No, I think the strategy has been paying off of getting a lot of funds out very quickly, both on the individual side and the small business side. So you had the stimulus checks going to individuals and families. You had the PPP funds flowing very quickly. I think that made a significant difference in propping up the economy.
Very good. A couple of comments. Tony is not happy with the forgiveness process. He says it is, quote, ridiculous. They made it very easy to get the loan with the promise of it being forgiven, but the bait and switch process is unfair. Sandra says, my bank is requiring anybody who travels to get a COVID test. Tests, although, are hard to get by in her area, and traveling pretty much means self-isolating for 2 weeks. Craig asked an interesting question. I don't know if you have the answer or if Katie has the answer. Is it safe to say that the new forgiveness application that came out this morning, will it change again? And that's just a wild guess, right?
Yeah, I think it might actually change once we get the final things in place, because this is just really implementing that Flexibility Act, and that's all it really is doing at the moment. So I could see it possibly changing. That being said, it looks like they really do want to start narrowing that down, so we do have some final rules and some final forms, because we can't really just keep having new forms every couple of weeks.
Well, we can, but it's...
No, it's not feasible, though. It's just not going to work for all of these lenders on the call and everything.
Chris, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, one question that has come up a lot, and I just wanted to address that, is there was confusion of the 8 weeks versus the 24 weeks. So, starting June 5th on and after that date, it's only a 24-week window. There's no more 8 weeks. So, and also the term of the loan, some confusion there of whether it's a 2-year term still, or the Flexibility Act made it a 5-year term, and bankers were not sure whether all the loans are now a 5-year term or they have to make them 5-year terms. So it's very simple. If your loan was done, your PPP loan was done before June 5th, you have discretion to change the loan term, but both the borrower and the lender have to mutually agree to change that loan term. Otherwise, it just remains a 2-year loan term. Now, any loan made after June 5th, you have to provide a 5-year loan term. So that's the difference, and there was a lot of confusion on that.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, we get a question on that almost daily. Very good. Chris, I got your question. I'm going to do some more research and I'll address it tomorrow. Hey, Paul, thank you very much. I appreciate your insights. It's awesome stuff. And as I said, thank you very much for subbing for me. So that was good. We're going to talk about this issue tomorrow. There was a big article in the Wall Street Journal. I know Wall Street Journal sued. We filed a FOIA request, and I'm sure ICBA as well. And we'll see what they have. Hey, we still have, you could still register for today's webinar. Just send an email to joseph@josephReport.com. And we're rolling out a new webinar on the PPP loan forgiveness guidelines that were updated today. And with that, thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Talk to you tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.